All right, so in this video, I want to teach you the 3 parts of my learning and productivity system that guide my everyday life. And the most important part about the system is that it's not in my head. It's an extended brain, a productivity system to manage my life so my physical brain, my actual brain, doesn't have to. The first section of a productivity system is our tasks. As a former medical doctor who now helps students and professionals learn more efficiently, I've discovered that most people only need 2 things to manage their day-to-day really well: an inbox and a calendar. Whether you're a student, doctor, or running your own business, there are tons of tasks to keep track of. But without a place to write them down, important things might slip through the cracks. Trust me, if you miss an opportunity because you just forgot about it, it will haunt you for the rest of your life. Don't rely on memory to manage your life. Whenever a responsibility comes up, make it a habit to capture it on the spot into an inbox. An inbox is just a temporary place to store something. It can be a physical notebook, a sticky note, or a note-taking app. For me, I use Notion because I love how quick and easy it is to capture anything thanks to hotkeys and widgets. If I'm in Notion, the hotkey Command-N can add a new task, which goes directly into my inbox because I am choosing the database in which to send it to. And if I'm on the go, I actually set up a Notion calendar widget. It's this guy right here, and there's a little plus icon which I can hit that will actually immediately add a task into my inbox as well. So in the book Hooked by Nirial, he talks about how one of the most powerful ways to turn a behavior into a habit is to increase our ability to engage in the action. So with the productivity system, that just means reducing the friction it takes for us to use it, right? So for me, just using a hotkey to add a task, pressing one button on my phone instead of having to open an app and then type something in, those tiny little things like that just make all the difference. So if you're a student, when your professor says you have a take-home quiz, add it to your inbox. If you're a business owner or side hustling, whenever a client needs support, add it to your inbox. If you're a working professional, when your associate says give the patient morphine, add it to your inbox or just give the patient morphine. And by the end of the week or even the end of the day, I'll have captured a bunch of stuff. And whenever I have a few extra minutes, I'll transfer stuff into my calendar, which is the second part of the system. Honestly, I never used to be a calendar person. I had this weird aversion to calendars when I was growing up. I thought it was so lame how people had to rely on a calendar to manage their life. And I was like, I want to be flexible and spontaneous, so I don't need a calendar. But as the business has grown, life has gotten more chaotic with dozens of things. It's impossible now not to use a calendar. If you prefer a physical calendar, great, do you. Google Calendar or Apple Calendar are also great free options that come with, the native suite of apps that you get on iPhone. I use Cron, which has recently become Notion Calendar, but I think with that change, honestly, it has been one of the biggest unlocks for my productivity. And I'm gonna show you why right now. If you don't have it already, you can go ahead and download Notion Calendar. You can just type it into your browser, even if you spell it incorrectly, and it should be the first thing that pops up. Get Notion Calendar for free. Go ahead, download it, do all that jazz. And you can link multiple calendars, which is very, very useful. I have my business email and my personal email, which I can see all on one calendar. But what's really cool here is what you can do by integrating it with your Notion task inbox. In Notion, and you scroll down to a linked database view where there is a calendar, right? You need a calendar view in this database. You'll see a button at the top right that says open in calendar. Just click on the button. I'm gonna go ahead and change the color here to red, make it stand out a little bit better. So at the top of the calendar, you'll see these 2 arrows that say collapse all day section. They kind of run into each other there. Go ahead and click on that to expand all of the items that you have scheduled for that particular day that don't have a time yet. And from here, all I have to do is just click and drag when I want to do those like you would in any calendar. Let's say I want to do this in the morning. I can do this maybe right after lunch. B-roll is an afternoon project for me, maybe a couple hours. Mike's birthday gift, that's a post-lunch errand. This is a morning activity for me. And voila, new podcast setup right there. And I can just start planning out my calendar this way. What I love even more is that if you have multiple databases with calendar views, you can actually add them all to Notion Calendar. All you have to do is click on O and search for a database in your Notion workspace and add it right here to the calendar. As you can see, I already have 3 different calendars from Notion showing in Notion Calendar. It 2-way syncs with Notion. So all of these changes that I just made here by adding different times and stuff, if we go back to Notion, we'll now also see in this calendar view that all those times appear here. I can create pages in my calendar that appear in Notion. All I have to do is either click and drag my mouse over any particular time that I want to make a task. make sure that it is in the right database or calendar, and then give it a name, new task. And if I want to take notes on it, I can actually open up that Notion page specifically, and it should pop up right here. Ooh, that's blinding. Let's give it a little dark, cool color there. It already has the time that I need it in. It doesn't really matter which calendar you use. You can stack whichever tools you want to build your system, but I always recommend at least doing 2 things with that system, a weekly and a daily review. So once a week, just spend 15 minutes or so to clarify the items in your inbox. And what that means is scheduling important stuff that has a deadline, or delegating things to other team members or your brother or other people if you don't personally want to do them, automating things that you can using software and tech, and finally removing stuff that either doesn't need to get done or that has consistently been in your inbox for a while you haven't gotten to. And then on a daily basis, do a 2-minute review to pick an MVP, or what I call a most valuable priority for the next day. The MVP is just identifying ahead of time, picking something to focus on that would make that day really valuable for you. I found on days when I don't choose an MVP, I end up procrastinating, or I get stuck doing unfocused, busy work or random tasks and stuff all day. And I just pick one thing, right? Just one most valuable priority. So that's the short version of using an inbox and a calendar. I break down that whole process much more deeply in this video up here. All right, so the next part of the system is knowledge management. Unfortunately, a lot of people stop learning once they finish school. And a big reason for that is because they don't have a system for lifelong learning. And that's what this part of the system is designed for. It also includes 2 parts. You need content and you need storage. Let's start with content. So the first part about content is actually curating it, right? Getting all of this information from the internet delivered to you. And there are 5 places I think that are super easy to get started with: online courses, books, newsletters, articles, and videos. And to make curating and consuming as easy as possible, I'd recommend getting a reading app. I personally use a combination of 3 apps here that all kind of work together and do their magic. I use Reader, Kindle, and then Readwise, which is actually also a partner app of Reader. This workflow has worked wonders for me, and it's a little bit confusing to understand conceptually, so let me draw it out for you. So anytime I come across content that I want to consume, it's sent to Reader. This includes all of those 5 components that I said, except for books, which I send to Kindle. So if I'm a student and I need to read this lecture or article, I just send it over to Reader. If I'm a busy professional watching a YouTube video about how to improve my social skills or something, I'll send that to Reader also. Or if I'm a creator and reading articles or taking online courses, they also get sent to Reader. And from Reader and Kindle, I can take notes and I highlight stuff. And anytime those highlights happen, that's where these apps are integrated with Readwise, which immediately also sends those highlights into my Notion extended brain. Spoiler here, that Notion is what I use for my second brain or my extended brain, the entire productivity system. Again, it doesn't really matter which one you use. There are a lot of good options for note-taking apps like Obsidian or Tana, or even Google Drive and Dropbox are totally fine. Just pick an app that you enjoy using. But again, just like for tasks, there are 2 very important practices that I recommend you do to improve self-directed learning. After taking notes, summarize the main ideas. This actually came from Tiago Forte, who recommends distilling content we consume so that we can use it later. Because if we don't do this, when we come back to our notes in the future and there are random highlights and sentences and stuff, it's like, what the hell? Like, what did I even write? So take a few minutes and distill the core ideas down and do your future self a favor. This way, if you come back to it in the future, you don't have to reconsume the content or read whatever article you're reading again to get the main ideas and basically start the whole process over again. And next is to tag it for organization. In Notion, I simply use a domains system and a type system. Each item in Extended Brain gets tagged by the type of content that it is, the status of whether or not I've processed it, right? I've distilled and summarized it, and also what domain it belongs to. And to me, I think of domains as little pockets of knowledge that piece of content is related to. Like when I was in medical school, the domains would have been my classes, right? Like cardio, repro, or pediatrics. But outside of school, these are things that I'm just interested in, like fitness or cooking, filmmaking, music production, stuff like that. And that whole process is actually incredibly valuable because it leads nicely into the last part of my productivity system, which is project management. The goal of a productivity system is to produce, right? Productivity equals producing. I'm like 95% sure that's where the produce came from. So I know project management can be scary and a bit complicated, and it's easy to get wrapped up in micromanaging our projects to the point where it turns into procrastination. So I've simplified things as much as I can, and I realized that it's actually really only 2 parts. Projects include tasks and notes. And the huge unlock I had was realizing that this was not a completely different workflow, but it was just a combination of the task and the knowledge systems. Project management is just combining the task and the knowledge system together in an extended brain. And that way I can save all 3 of my tiny brain cells for working instead of trying to remember and track things in my head. Because again, remember that it's terrible to rely on our memory to get things done. My favorite way to manage projects is to use something called a Kanban board. It's a nice visual way to keep track of project tasks and notes and stuff, kind of like sticky notes on a board. The app itself, again, isn't really that important. You can use something like Trello, which is pretty simple, or Asana, or you can even use physical sticky notes and post-it notes and put them on your wall or something. But if you want your project management system fluid with the other 2, I'd actually recommend a tool that has relational linking, where you can organize things as databases or backlinks. And what that means is you can link any individual item to multiple places instead of having to copy and paste them from one folder into another. For example, if I read a book about habits, I would probably put that habit book tagged in my domain about habits. But from there, I could link that item to multiple different projects if it was relevant, but it would still stay in the original domain tagged habits. All project management at Cajun Koi is run using Notion. As I said, I created and designed this exact workflow. Like YouTube videos like the one you're watching right now is managed on our content Kanban board. You can see I'm tracking the status of each video along its production pipeline, and I can just click and drag to move things along where they need to go. And I can see any remaining tasks like thumbnail design or B-roll that I need to get. And inside of the project, I can also see all of the knowledge that I consumed that's been linked to this page. So those are the 3 components you need to build a powerful productivity system. All 3 of those cogs are lubricated and spinning together. You'll be more focused, productive, and you might even enjoy the process at the same time. If you're interested in the exact system I was showing throughout this video, then check out Extended Brain. I go much more into detail about all the specific workflows and details in it in this video right over here. But in any case, I hope there was something helpful for you in this video. Let's make 2024 the most productive and focused year yet. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next video.